Are you and your family tired of the same old chicken dish week after week? Today I'm going to show you a way to take ordinary chicken, add some flavor and pizzazz to make a dish with an Asian flair while still remaining simple enough for the kids to eat and enjoy. We're making ginger soy chicken today on The Queen of Cooking. Hello and welcome to The Queen of Cooking. I am the Queen and your host, Michelle Jarvis. I'm so excited today to make one of my favorite dishes, ginger soy chicken. On the surface, this might seem like a meal that caters to a more sophisticated palate, but I've also found this to be a great family meal. It's simple enough kids will love it, and it takes less than 30 minutes to prepare. So let's start with the ingredients. You're going to need a head of Napa cabbage, a package around 1 pound of chicken, and about 2 inches of ginger. You'll need 1 bunch of green onions, 4 nice-sized cloves of garlic, soy sauce, honey, and rice. Now when I start this, I always make the rice first so that it can be done well in advance. It doesn't usually get cold by the time we're ready to plate it up and eat. So then when I move on to the vegetables, I start with the Napa cabbage so that it can drain in the colander while I'm preparing the rest of everything else, because we don't want any water to pool up in the rice while we're eating. It's kind of yucky. Waters the whole dish down. So when I make this, I've already washed it. I cut it in half to start with. And I'm gonna put one half of the head aside because I really only need half for this meal. And then we cut it into nice thin strips. It doesn't have to be perfect. Once you start cutting down in there, you can see that there's a lot more of the frilly yellows down here in the center. So I try to cut down in there too. And now that's pretty good. I've got enough of that. And I'm putting it into my colander to set aside until we're ready for it. Next is the green onions. And I like a little smaller knife for these. And I just cut them into little rolls, little slices. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna set these off to the side, and I've already got one of my little handy dandy bowls out so I can put them all in, because once we get started cooking, the whole dish moves really fast, and so you don't want to be labored trying to cut everything and move too fast and mess something up. So then I like to get the ginger prepared, and to do that I'm going to just take it, I think this is actually a little bit much, so I'm going to cut it down to about the 2 inches. And it's really tough, so be prepared. You need to have a really sharp knife when you're dealing with ginger. And I just use my normal potato peeler to get the skin off of this. So I'm just gonna peel it right here. And it's just like peeling a potato. If you see a spot that doesn't look great, just peel it a little bit deeper. Sometimes the little elbows and joints of the ginger is tough to get to with the peeler. So we can just cut around those when we start dicing it up. Because ginger has such a strong flavor that once it gets into the dish, a little bit goes a long way. So it's okay if we cut a little bit of it out. Okay, so this is what it looks like now that I've got it all peeled. It's a little bit fibrous. That's the thickness, that's where the thickness comes from. So just cut it into slices. Okay, now that I've got it into long French fry kind of strips, I'm gonna cut it again to make it little diced pieces. And those will saute in our dish. Now this is the best ingredient in my opinion because it has so much flavor. And it's a little bit different than so many other things that we're used to eating. So now that that's all done, I've already got one of my little handy dandy bowls set aside for this too. So I'm just going to scoop it up in there. And this goes in before the green onions, so that's why I have a separate bowl for it. And that's also why I'm going to press my 4 garlic cloves into the same bowl. And if you did not have a garlic press like this, you could still just dice it up the same way that we did the ginger. It's always important to pull out the yucky hulls when you're done, because if it dries in there, might as well buy a new press. Okay, number 4. So, lay that off to the side. A little piece of ginger got away, we'll stick it back in there. Now that means we're ready to cut the chicken. And I've already taken it out of the package and rinsed it off a little bit, but we're gonna go ahead and chop it. Now we need kind of smallish pieces for the chicken because we kind of want them to be bite-sized once they get on the plate. So I'm gonna cut each breast into strips. And I'm gonna press the strips back together and cut them into pieces this way. And this is gonna give me little strips to fry in the pan. Okay, so I'll finish the chicken here, and don't forget to wash your hands when you're done with the chicken, and then put the oil in the skillet and get that warming up. We're back at the stove, and I've got the oil in the pan, and it's about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And it's getting warm before we add the chicken because we kind of want this to stir fry to cook. Now that I've got the oil nice and hot, I'm gonna go ahead and add the chicken that we cut up earlier. And it's not quite sizzling yet, but while it works up to that, I'm gonna go ahead and add some pepper. We don't wanna add any salt because the salt flavor definitely comes in with the soy sauce later on. Pepper, pepper, pepper. And I'm gonna stir that up and let the pepper get all over the chicken. And then I'm gonna use the wooden spoon to squish the pieces into more bite-sized pieces. Because we cut it up into small pieces, but the pieces are still kind of big for the kids. And what we wanna do right now is just to get the chicken kind of white all over, but definitely not cooked all the way through. Because we're going to add the ginger and the garlic next, and we want those to flavor the chicken. And it's still pretty pink, but we've got white on all the pieces of chicken. So while that's cooking up, we're gonna go ahead and add the ginger and the garlic that we prepared earlier. And make sure we get it all in there. So yummy. And stir it around with the chicken. And make sure that those clumps of garlic really get broken up while we're stirring it all together. Because this is really what's going to flavor the chicken the most. And, you know, there's a lot of healthy things going on in this meal. The chicken is very lean. I chose to use brown rice, which is better for digestion than the white rice, its counterpart. The ginger not only has a lot of flavor, but is good for digestion. And honey has all of its antioxidants. Garlic is good for the heart. And soy sauce just really tastes good. Okay, so this needs to cook for a few minutes and let the the chicken really get pretty white all the way through. And that way the flavors can really come out in the garlic and the ginger. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and get our plate started. We started the rice earlier so that we would be ready. Because once this starts cooking, you remember, it gets really going fast. So I've got my rice. And I spoon some on to my plate. Nice big healthy serving here. This really is what fills me up the most in this meal. And I like to add some Napa cabbage. That's what we cut this up for. We're gonna put that right on top of the rice. We don't want too much, because it kind of gets in the way if we've got too much, but it really complements all of the flavors. It's a nice crisp addition. So I'm going to set that off to the side, and now I'm going to give this another stir. That smells really strong now. Get a lot of that ginger smell. Okay, now our chicken is nice and white, and the smell of the ginger has kind of died down a little bit, so you know it's really starting to cook out, and it's kind of getting a little bit whiter than it was when we first started. So now we're ready to add the ginger and soy sauce, which I've already mixed up. We had 6 tablespoons of honey and a half cup of soy sauce. Just go ahead and pour that right on top. And that kind of cools everything down, but only for a second. And this is really when it's going to take off and go fast. So we want to get this stirred up here and get our lid back on. And it's going to cook up and start being kind of bubbly in there. And then it's kind of going to glaze up a little bit. The honey thickens up and some of the juice cooks out of the soy sauce, and it really makes it a nice glaze. So put the lid on and let it sizzle up and get bubbly. It's kind of getting bubbly now, and look at that. All nice and foamy on top, and it smells delicious. This is gonna taste great. The only thing we have left to do is to add our green onions. We're gonna put those in, stir it up so they get a nice coating of our juicy sauce. And we just want to let them cook a little bit and release a little bit of flavor, but we don't want them to get too wilty. So I'm gonna put the lid on, and when we're done letting this simmer, we'll go ahead and spoon it on top of our prepared plates. We'll be ready to eat. Okay, so the hard part is behind us. Dinner's ready, and we've poured a glass of wine, and we're ready to eat. So I guess it wouldn't be complete unless we had a bite, right? So get a little bit of rice, and a little bit of chicken, and a little bit of cabbage. Delicious. Spicy and sweet, not too much of anything. Very nice. I'm sure that you and your kids will love it too. Thanks for tuning in with the Queen of Cooking.